Voice of Choice podcast ad paid for by Californians for School Choice. Committee major funding from Dale Broome.
Trapped by their zip codes, the poorest children are denied access to a quality education that will enable them to break the cycle of poverty and take their rightful place in our society. This is real systemic racism. It's time to put school choice on the ballot. Hello, this is Mike Alexander, president of Californians for School Choice. Under the Educational Freedom Act initiative, parents, not zip codes, will decide where their children go to school. Parents wanting to leave the disastrous public school system will receive a yearly tuition credit of $14,000 per child to attend a private or religious school of their choice and save any money left over for college, vocational training, or other qualified expense. To sign the petition and learn how you can help, go to californiaschoolchoice.org. That's californiaschoolchoice.org. And remember, it's your kids, your money, and your choice.
Committee major funding from Dale Broome.
Welcome to the California School Choice Radio Network, hosted by Mike Alexander, the lead proponent of the Educational Freedom Act initiative and chairman of Californians for School Choice. Join us to learn how to put parents, not politicians, in charge of our children's education. And now, here's your host, Mike Alexander, the voice of choice in California education.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Alexander, the voice of choice, back with you here. Now, in this segment, I have the pleasure and privilege of introducing to you one of our lead proponents, and that is Marc Ang from Orange County, California, and really two or three other counties that he's worked and lived in. Marc has been one of the hardest workers and advocates for school choice. He has also been very, very involved in the Asian community, and I'm going to ask that he tell you a bit about himself, his background, and what led him to become involved with school choice and what's going on right now. Marc Ang, welcome to the Voice of Choice.
Mike, thank you. Thank you for being a tireless fighter. Thank you for leading this. It is a grassroots person like you that compelled me to follow and be part of this school choice movement. But my background goes all the way back to when I was still in college, and actually even in high school, I was a tutor. And I started a tutoring company and was very involved also with LAUSD right after I graduated college in 2003 from Pepperdine, and stuck around in the San Fernando Valley and really got to see the underbelly of what we are fighting today. And from all those years, seeing our quality of education go down to, just all the services, teachers and schools used to provide, getting lower and lower in quality, and seeing the homeschool movement grow. I was part of seeding some initial homeschool movements back in 03, 04, even before I was politically ideological or getting involved in, at the time, I was not a fan of George Bush. I was not a fan of Republicans in general. Today, we've come around full circle, and I'm an independent. And I also reject a lot of what's going on with, the party and them trying to, have this other initiative that is really Republican in nature and not grassroots focused. Right. So I believe.
Marc, let's back up just a little bit. You and I, of course, know each other quite well. Our audience here, perhaps not so much. Why don't you start by, obviously you're an Asian guy, and the way that you and I met, you're out there doing a tremendous amount of grassroots work in the Asian community. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your experience in that community and how they feel about education in general and about school choice in particular.
Absolutely. So my organization is called Asian Industry B2B, which also came out of my involvement with Asian business organizations, but also my affiliation with the Chinese American Citizens Alliance, which I'm the president of the OC Lodge, but I've worked very closely with the San Gabriel Valley Lodge, which is where, you and I have crossed paths, because you have a great operation that everyone knows about in Pasadena with TPAC and all the work that you've been doing in the community community. So really, it's a no-brainer with education. Asians value education in a way that no other ethnic demographic group does. Asians' parents sacrifice so much in the belief that the education system will give the upward mobility and social standing for their next generation, to the point that they sacrifice, all their life savings, their work to provide a leg up, whether it's tutoring services, whether it's extracurriculars. And so the Asian community is dedicated to education. And what I initially going into activism, there's a lot of issues. Asians are also business owners. So, but I noticed when I started my organization, I started to see the need and the frustration with a lot of Asian parents with the public school system. Many chose to opt to put their kids, like my parents chose to put me through private school parts of the way, because private school really was able to teach not only the academics at a higher level to the kids, but also, the social aspect. And also, coming from a faith-based background, my parents really felt valuable that I was teaching good morals and values in school, which were slowly becoming compromised over the years with public schools. So many issues came to a head, and it became just only logical for our organizations to partner. And in 2019, as you launched your efforts with school choice, I was there right with you and Riley's Farm, and over the years creating all of these events for the community to give them resources and a lot of your great infrastructure and great people in your organization, like Denise Soto, Eric Chan, all of these people that I have so enjoyed working with. We've been able to work in the community and bring people like private schools, charter schools, homeschool resources, after school or extracurricular activities, down to jiu-jitsu, presentations at our events. I mean, we've done so much in the community to promote resources and avenues for parents to have something better than just the turd sandwich that the public schools are giving.
A little, yeah. Tell us what you think, Mark. No,
Yeah.
Totally with you there, and you're very generous in your remarks. You've been out there. We've had the petition now. As everybody, by time this interview runs, they will have had my introduction that'll be recorded, talking about the nature of this initiative and our signature gathering process. One of the things that I always ask all of my people, tell me about your worst experience. Tell me about who refused to sign this initiative. Tell me about the people who rejected school choice. Tell us, Mark, about your experience. Have you run into anybody who didn't like this? And if so, how many of them?
Absolutely. I think the experience that was the most negative that I experienced was when the Orange County Classical Academy was getting approved in the school district in Orange, and a bunch of people on the left dressed in black, or these union goons basically, that didn't like the idea of a charter school even existing, went in full force, probably a paid concerted effort because they were all dressed the same, to talk bad about charter schools, when the data is very clear that charter schools actually uplift the community by creating a circumstance of free market competition so that all schools can get better, and that the rising tide lifting all boats. So that was really shocking to me, as far as, in general. And this was before we launched the initiative. But if you're asking specifically about the initiative, the most shocking thing to me is really the Republican Party and their operatives creating a similar but way more deficient initiative that is a nod to the unions and basically causing confusion and putting themselves out there. And that has been very negative, to the point that, our school choice initiative actually had a table at a recent event for the Conservative Patriots of Orange County, which is a great group that just started up due to the frustration of the Republican Party. They are more concerned about values, and they welcome independents and Democrats and people that are America first and that think common sense. And that Republican initiative came in sneakily with clipboard and their petition and tried to fool people into signing that petition. I mean, that to me is so shocking. This is the behavior that it really makes me realize I'm so glad to be an NPP and an independent, because I am not rooting for any party. I am rooting for common sense initiatives like this one, the California School Choice Initiative, that has grassroots impact in the community, and is also doing crafting the legislation to actually help families versus divide by income, by means testing, by shutting out homeschoolers. I mean, we need to stop with these divisions and work to better the lives of our average Californian, which is not getting the education they need. I mean, you go to Starbucks and people can't even do math when the computer shuts down. I mean, that's what you're experiencing.
Yeah. They can't make change. We all of us remember somewhere in grammar school, by the time we had a grasp of money, a grasp of basic arithmetic, at some point, in my case, it was the sisters, when we got to this thing called decimals, then they had a chance to teach decimals by teaching money. And one of the exercises was, if somebody gives you a $10 bill and they bought $7.50 worth of product, how much do they have coming back for it? Make change. And they teach you how to count $7.50, $8, $9, $10, right? And we're done. They can't do that. They can't make change in their head.
A lost art.
A lost art. And very basic things. And the computer is there now to keep the employees from stupidly stealing from the system. And of course, at the same time, trying to grift us for a tip for pushing a cup of coffee across the counter. But that's the subject of another discussion. Mark, one of the things that we constantly emphasize here, and I'm you, of course, are a no party preference guy. This initiative of ours is, as we have discussed many, many times, it's nonpartisan. And we get wide support from no party preference folks like yourself and tons of Democrats. Tell me, if you would, about your experience with the average family and their frustrations, their attitudes about school choice.
Yeah, it's really a nonpartisan issue. You have a lot of parents that are just very shocked at the level of or the lack of quality education they're getting when their kids are coming home with ridiculous ideological assignments like, why am I a racist? Or, sex ed that is inappropriate for, that age group. So these are the type of things that, a lot of Democrat parents are actually have joined our movement. And, it is not about partisanship because, most of us are not partisan. I mean, if I met a good Democrat, I would support them, just like I have with Sheriff Alex Villanueva, who is a Democrat, but I like what he's doing in terms of doing the right thing in his position. So really, it's not about, I think we're in a post-partisan world now. And I think a lot of the Republicans are stuck in, I think a lot of Republicans are very hypocritical because they are about worshiping glory and people that were supposedly connected with the Trump administration that have some sort of glorious sheen around them. And their brain shut down the moment they see that, instead of looking at policy, legislation, and the effects of policy and legislation on the future of their children. So what is it? Are you here to be another Hollywood type sycophant, but for politics? Or are you here to actually further our values? Because, it is not about the money we raise. It's about getting the message out and changing the culture. So I really am not about, short-term political gains. That doesn't matter, because those can be very temporary. As we saw in 2014, we thought that Republicans thought that it was going to turn the tide in 14, but in 16 and 18 and 20, it just kept slipping further and further. So it is really not, you cannot hang your hopes on the false idol of a political party. You have to hang your hopes on what quality, good legislation can do, and what smart legislation has done for California that has actually helped us weather the partisan storm of all Democrats in control and being very corrupt. But we have things like in our California Constitution that have stayed very consistent over the years that will prevent those who want to step over any law and do whatever they want with no recourse. There is still that there. That is why we've been able to preserve a lot of our freedoms, is because of those things that are tried and true. So let us focus on policy, less on personality.
Yeah, and we need to focus on the kids. Just talking about the political situation here in California, it's clear that nothing can be, or at least very little, can be reliably achieved through the normal electoral process. Here in our country, we thought from the very beginning that if we elected representatives, they would in fact represent. But now we see a phenomenon in Washington, in Sacramento, and other places where our legislation is written outside of the legislative process. A lot of money is put behind it, it's packaged up, and then arms are twisted, money is spread around until the votes are gathered. I mean, even look what was happening and continues to happen in Washington with these proxies that were given to certain party leaders. And so now we have not representative government, but we have party government. And the parties can be a healthy thing. It has a long role in our society, but we can now see that we are not individually represented, and we don't have a normal representative process. Otherwise, these very controversial provisions that are in these dumpster size mega bills that are coming through, those individual controversial programs and proposals would get a hearing. The questions would be asked, sunlight would be brought in, and the people who dreamed that up would be sent packing. But we no longer have that. But the greatest crisis that we have, and I'm going to be discussing this with Professor Victor David Hansen in an interview next week. You guys want to make sure you tune in for episode number 3. This is episode number 2 now, but we're going to talk with Victor, Dr. Hansen, about the death of the citizen, or what we have called in my organization for the last 13 years, the crisis of citizenship. What we have here in our society, more than anything else, is the failure of the citizen. Because, Mark, if we believe, and you and I do, that our government rests upon the consent of the governed, then everything that happens, for good or for ill, is on you and it's on me. We cannot say that this government requires our consent and then claim that we're not responsible for what happened. And, I'll give you, what's our time look like here, Mr. Producer?
17 minutes.
17. Hey, we're in good shape. I'll tell you a funny story. About a week ago, a guy called me regarding an audio question. Many years ago, I had a lot of connection with the high-end audio industry, and he had a question about it. And he and I hadn't seen each other for 10 years. And the last time we saw each other, I told him I had to give a political speech on on a Sunday afternoon. So he came down, he heard me, and I had forgotten all about it until he said, something that you said 10 years ago has stuck with me. Well, it wasn't something that I said 10 years ago. It was somebody else that I quoted 10 years ago. And that was one of the big advertisers on this station, KRLA, Sonny Sardo, right? So Sonny was running for Congress back at that time, and he was reading off of a piece of notepaper, almost like a student. But he said, in the United States, we can change our form of government every 100 weeks. And he said it in such a low, unremarkable tone that you could almost have ignored it, and yet it stuck with me. That's the reality here in the United States. Every 2 years, we reelect a Congress. So we've got 437 people there, or whatever the number, I guess, 100 representatives, 50 states, I forget who else is in there, but we can turn them all out, plus 1/3 of the Senate. This crisis is on us, and this is why we're joining together with citizens from all parties, all races, all ethnicities, all countries of national origin, all men of goodwill and good faith, wherever we find them, in order to restore our state. And the place where we always have to start is a place where societies always start, and that is with the children, with their intellectual formation, their moral formation, and religious formation, all under the control of the parents. So what we're really trying to do here is to restore the American family that is under systematic attack from the larger culture, the entertainment culture, the athletic culture, but more than anything else, the deliberate secularistic culture that is implemented within the government's so-called schools. These are places of indoctrination and political manipulation. And what they're doing there, as you and I have discussed many times, is a form of gerrymandering. I don't know if I covered this in the last episode, but it merits repetition. There are 3 kinds of gerrymandering. The first kind is our old favorite. That was Eldridge Gary, one of our founding fathers, actually, was running, I think, for governor up in Massachusetts. And he discovered that if he redrew the lines, he could split the opposition and concentrate his own people and help to get him elected, what would otherwise have been a close election. The second kind of that is, redraw the lines until you get citizens that you like. But either way, it is gerrymandering is a process in which politicians pick their citizens rather than citizens picking their representatives. The second one we all know, and that is immigration. Keep letting people in from anywhere you want, because you think that they'll be easier to manipulate, more likely to agree with you, whatever the case may be. That's the second kind of modern gerrymandering. But the third and most pernicious and most dangerous kind of gerrymandering is the public so-called school system.
Yes.
And in that system, they mandate on a statewide basis, and they're trying to do it nationally as well, that certain ideas be taught, certain thoughts be thought. You have to get the student to preach them back to you. Certain things are not to be known or studied, for example, religion, and you are to teach every student that he or she, or whatever the preferred pronoun might be, is going to look to the government for support, for reliability, for safety in their lives. And it is that kind of gerrymandering, Mark, that has made political progress in this state impossible for either party. Right now, what's running our state is not the Republican Party, obviously. It's not even the Democrat Party. It's the government party. It's the people and special interests that together comprise this vast enterprise we call government that is, in fact, running our state, running our culture, and tell us when, where, and if we can cough or come together for breakfast. They've even tried to tell us when.
And they're trying to tell us about Christmas too, about Biden is, and the three types of gerrymandering are so strong here in California. And with the Asian community, it really makes a lot of sense because a lot of Asian parents are just so trusting. It's like they can't come to this country expecting, hey, we wouldn't have the same thing as we did back in Vietnam, back in China, where the communists took over. And then now imagine the shock as they wake up and see, especially in the last year over Zoom, when, that's the kind of unintended consequence for the government party, as you said it, revealing exactly how poor the education system is now that everyone can see it on those Zoom calls, which is why Virginia happened. And, we, the people, actually got together. And here in California, I think, I know this for a fact, being in the community, it doesn't matter if you're Asian, if you're Black, if you're white, if you're Hispanic, families and caring for our children, it's the same across the board. It is the human experience. We need to unite under that, not by political party banner, but by the fact that we're human and we have all the same, goals, loves, all the things that make us tick as humans. That is what we need to start talking about versus all this partisan stuff. We know the Democrats are out there as the party in control and in government pushing that, but we also realize the Republicans are just as compliant in this agenda. And we need to cut through all of that and unite we, the people. So in these districts, down to the school districts, we can push back on this government excess like they did in Loudoun County in Virginia and eventually won the state back through the sheer frustration of we, the people.
Yes. And we, of course, as school choice, have a plan to do a lot more than they're doing in Virginia. And the reason is because we actually have the ability to use the administrative process, the initiative process in California, whereas you can't do that in every state in the union. We here in California are unique, and we have the opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to send a message to government across the board, regardless of where we live, regardless of where we worship, regardless of what candidates we might vote for under other circumstances. This is our opportunity to tell everybody that we really and truly are diverse, and you will find that diversity, real diversity, you will find in the school choice movement here in California, and nobody better represents or illustrates that diversity than the guy that we've had the pleasure of speaking with for the last half hour, my friend and fellow proponent of the Educational Freedom Act, Marc Ang. Marc, I want to thank you for being with us today and tell you it's been a pleasure and a privilege to work beside you. We have 90 days to go right through the end of March. And now's the time for everybody to saddle up and get busy. We have 1 million signatures together. We're well on our way. And I think our opposition is withered away. And, we'll have a chance to talk about that here a little bit more later on. But right now, we're the game in California. So everybody saddle up. Again, Marc, thank you, my friend. God bless. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Mike.
Ladies and gentlemen, we had the opportunity here to speak with Marc Ang. We'll take a short break, and I'll be back with the next segment. Mike Alexander here, the voice of choice. California schools rank 48th nationally, even though we spend $20,000 per year per student. That's $500,000 per classroom. This system is nothing but a fraud, a hustle, and a con. It's time to put school choice on the ballot. Hello, this is Mike Alexander, Chairman of Californians for School Choice. Under the Educational Freedom Act initiative, parents will decide where their children go to school. Each child will receive a yearly tuition credit of $14,000 to attend a private or religious school of their choice and save any money left over for college, vocational training, or other qualified expense. To sign the petition and learn how you can help, go to californiaschoolchoice.org. That's californiaschoolchoice.org, californiaschoolchoice.org. And remember, it's your kids, your money, and your choice.
Committee major funding from Dale Broome.
This is Mike Alexander back with you for our favorite segment of The Voice of Choice, and that is the Government Grifter of the Week Award. Now, for those of you who used to listen to me on Radio Free Los Angeles, you know that one of our most popular features was the weekly Government Grifter of the Week Award. And during that time, we would take a wry eye and turn it on the system that we call government to see where the money really goes. Now, if you've listened to anything that we've said before, you know already from having read the Educational Freedom Act initiative that the average per pupil expenditure in this state is over $20,000. So if you take the average classroom size of 25, that's what they try to get. And even if you went to one of their schools you have trouble adding, take out your smartphone and plug it in, and $20,000 a piece means $500,000 per year per classroom of 25. Now, they pay that teacher or a person who describes herself as such about $100,000 to $125,000 a year is salary, benefits, pension contributions, and walking around money. So that leaves around $375,000 per year per classroom of 25. And, really, we would like to know where the money goes. And so we put that question to our indefatigable researcher, Juan Tierra. He goes by, that's not his real name, but that is what he calls his nom de radio. And we have John now. He was on with us for a couple of years here when we were doing the feature on the other show. And we just want to welcome back Juan Tierra. How are you today, Juan?
I'm fine. Nice to be back, Mike.
Oh, it's
Good
great to
afternoon,
have you back.
And hello to our audience.
You betcha. Well, they're all loyal people out there. And you can bet that we're being monitored by the government grifters themselves who want to know what we're thinking and saying. So all we can say is, this is for you, babe. We've got it out there. So, John, take us a little walk down Grifter Road. What do you have for us today?
Well, our first award is a real stunner, even for a cynic like yours truly. It's hard to believe that the superintendent of a medium-sized school district can be the state's highest-paid school administrator with salary and benefits perks averaging well over $600,000 a year.
$600,000 a year.
That's kind of a low number, actually.
Wow.
But Mr. James Q. Hammond, superintendent of the Ontario Montclair School District, has accomplished this feat 3 years in a row.
This is a winner. All right.
Well, now, our sources, I always state them. An excellent article by Jason Harvey in the Pasadena Star News, November 15th of this year. Mm-hmm. And I use a terrific website, transparentcalifornia.com.
Oh.
You can look up all kinds of good stuff on that, as well as a website, publicschoolreview.com.
Oh.
So these are really good sources.
Excellent.
Now, here are the last 3 years of Mr. Hammond's pay in round numbers. 2018, regular pay, $308,000. I just use round numbers, by the way.
Now this
Other
base
pay.
pay is 308. But that would usually be a takeaway award right there. But he adds on to it. Amazing.
Well, he has other pay, which I'll get to. In 2018, it was $351,000, much more than his regular salary, by the way.
Wow.
2019, regular pay, he gets regular raises, $340,000. Other pay, $268,000. Last year, 2020, regular pay, $355,000. Other pay, $197,000. Those totals do not reflect the value of his medical and pension benefits, which last year, 2020, were worth $68,000.
Wow.
What's striking about these figures is that the total of other pay is, those 3 years, $748,000. Over the past 5 years, since 2015, he's made about $3 million, with 1.1 being other pay. Now, the obvious question is, what the heck is other pay?
Right.
Now, for that, we go to Transparent California.
Mm-hmm.
Other pay includes all forms of pay not reported in the other categories and may include, among other things, car allowances, meeting stipends, longevity pay, bonus pay, and my favorite, inventive pay, whatever that is.
Inventive pay?
That's actually
inventing new ways to get paid?
There's something called inventive pay.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this guy, Mr. Hammond, has negotiated himself a great contract, which allows him to bank his sick time, now at $85 a year, and increases 5 days every year going forward. Plus,
wait, $85 a year or 85 days a year?
85 days a year, and it increases 5 days every year going forward. So next year will be 90.
Wow.
Plus, 25 vacation days, 5 weeks, for a grand total of 110 days this year alone.
Wow.
He can bank, and does, all that time and cash out whatever portion he chooses to at year's end. For example, last year in 2020, he cashed out 100 days and collected an extra $152,000.
Wow.
Now, what's the average, you ask? Well, the average is 2 to 3 weeks, 11 to 15 weeks for a school superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
And those of us who were labored in the private sector, what happened to use it or lose it?
Oh, yeah, you're right. Exactly. If you ever got it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there's some other interesting perks Mr. Hammond has in his contracts. Annual cost of living increases, up to $2,500 a month for a life insurance policy.
Mm-hmm.
He's up to $134,000 in retirement pension-related contributions from the district.
From the district.
Lifetime health benefits for himself, his wife, and his children, with all premiums paid by the district.
Unbelievable.
A just cause provision from severance pay of 12 months, whenever that happens, unless it's felony or something.
Yeah.
Full reimbursement for Medicare tax contributions.
Wow.
And here's the capper. This guy should have been in real estate. At one point, he purchased a condo. For some reason, he was granted a $100,000 loan from the school district. That loan was forgiven in 2018 without him making a single payment.
Huh?
He subsequently sold the condo for $389,000, for a sweet profit of a cool $58,000. Now, when questioned by the press and Transparent California, the district said his contracts are legal; they've been vetted. The school board president stated that such compensation allows the district to avoid turnover in position. I guess this is longevity pay.
Turnover? Yeah, I guess there'll never be a turnover again. Over. Yeah, the only thing you turn it over, taxpayers in their grave.
He's been there since 2010.
Yeah, I guess so. He's retention. Yeah.
So
longevity.
What do the taxpayers of this district get for such a high-priced superintendent?
Mm-hmm.
Here's a profile. Here's a school profile from.
Okay, so now let's set the table. Juan Tierra here has described the LeBron James of school grifters. We have him right here in captivity, and this guy banked over 600 grand. And obviously we're having trouble counting all the money that this guy actually grifts out of the deal. So with, you should have been an investigative reporter. Juan Tierra says, what the hell do you do for that kind of money? Right? What are the taxpayers getting for this money? Undoubtedly the best performing school in the state of California. Right,
Well,
Senor Tierra?
not quite.
Not
Now,
quite.
You can look up publicschoolreview.com. It's a very good site.
Yeah.
They give you districts. They give you all the schools. Here's a profile that I gleaned from their website. That district has 31 public schools with 21,000 students. This puts it in medium rank. Okay, it's not large. It's not small. It's not like LUS.
Right.
Sure. Now, the 902 teachers. The student ratio is 23-1. That's the state average on the nose. But the school ranking is in the bottom 50% of schools in California.
Wow.
Now, let me read this and we'll go back to it. The schools in the district have an average math proficiency score of 35%.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's worse than the state average of 40. Reading, we'll get. I can hear you laughing already. Yes. Reading proficiency, 44%, versus the statewide average of 51. Now, that's bad enough, but look, what's the state average? It's terrible. Yeah. I mean, now here's maybe a tip off. The minority enrollment is 97%, not diverse at all.
Right.
Mainly Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few highly rated schools, but the vast majority are underwater big time.
Right.
So
well,
the question before that, go ahead.
Go ahead, John. Finish.
Now, just to sum up, just to summarize, here's the medium-sized school district with below average proficiency in math and reading, employing the highest paid superintendent in the entire state. What is wrong with this picture? Thus, Mr. Hammond is the worthy recipient of our initial Government Grifter Award.
Well, this guy's impressive. Usually I'd get on you one usually for not bringing a couple other nominees, but this guy's a blowout candidate.
That's when I started. I saw a story on this and I read it some time ago and it came back to mind. And it's a mind blower.
Yeah. This is amazing. So we have this guy, and by the way, there's a real person. A lot of times what we do, because it's hard to actually put names to some of these guys and hard for us to talk about people individually if they're not already something of a public figure. But here, this guy, Jason Henry. Excuse me, that's the author. Who's this? Who's this grifter here?
David Q. Hammond.
David Q. Hammond. I wonder if they have to call it. Does he have an advanced degree? Like when they call these people doctor of all the things. They make it through there. I'm gonna make some enemies.
I didn't see his educational
stuff.
Okay,
but at any rate, David, I wonder what that Q's for. What Quincy. Quentin, something like that. But this guy hustles big time. He'd do well on the streets, actually. We have all this. Now, he got big pay raises right during COVID, right through the whole COVID con, right?
Oh, sure.
He went up, more money, another 5 or 10 days a year forever is sick pay. This guy, if there's no age discrimination, he may go the distance. He might go to 80. Why would he stop? He doesn't have to perform. And then everybody comes up with this business here that, it's a 97% Hispanic district. Well, so is every district in our area here. But they're educating kids in Catholic schools.
State average is 77%, actually. That's in profile, too.
Yeah, and he's at 95. Well, he doesn't have any numbers at all, and it's hard to see how things could be worse, than what he's doing down there. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's easy sometimes to mock and laugh at these people, but we really want you to know that underneath all of this, there is a festering, squalid fiscal mess. These people are grifting the system. It's not about educating students. It's not about preparing them for a productive life in our society, giving them the tools that they need. Particularly this neighborhood here, which is 95% Hispanic. You can imagine that a lot of those homes, English is spoken there. It takes a lot of effort in the schools to give them these opportunities. And instead of giving them the opportunities, we stand by and everybody collects the money. Now, over the next year, all of you out there are going to hear 3 or 4 advertisements. And the first of the advertisements attacking school choice will be that we're taking money away from the public school system. And when you hear that, I want you to remember this story and all the stories that Juan Tierra is going to be bringing us in the weeks to come. And when you, after you've heard those stories and you hear that we're being accused of taking money away from the system, I want you to cheer us on, because we will be taking money away from a system that pays this guy $600,000 a year for no results. Zero. Period. Now, what parent do you think is going to want to put his or her child into a school that's worse than average statewide? It's unforgivable. It is impossible to believe that parents would do a worse job. And when you want to know where the money went, well, you know where it went. It went to people like this. And old Juan Tierra here, El Viejo, he'll tell you that Mr. In fact, I tell you what, let's do a follow-up. Maybe not this coming week, a couple of weeks from now, let's do a follow-up on the Ontario Montclair School District and take a deep dive, if you would, Juan, into the administrative salaries that we have. He's obviously not the only guy.
Oh, I looked at them. There's about 4 or 5 of them making well over 200 grand.
Yeah, there you go. For administrators.
Yeah.
For administrators. Why? What are they administrating?
Goes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's another $1 million. In the meanwhile, they're going to go on the radio, on television, on the streets and everything else, talking about how if we vote in school choice here in the state of California, we're going to take money away from the public schools and we're going to ruin public schools. Well, our response to that is, no, you already did that. You are the people that took all this money and ran us down to 48. And the 2 words that come to mind are not, we're sorry. The 2 words that come to mind when we hear about this is, you're fired. And it's time to get rid of these non-performers and let the market decide. And you know that when school choice hits, all of these people are going to have to start performing, because those students out there at that school are going to hit the exits. And that big boom that you're hearing is all the kids hitting those emergency doors at the same time for the waiting parents out there. In the meanwhile, private schools and charter schools continue to outperform the public schools. So we don't have any music this week for you, John, but we're going to work on it. We've got a good guy, Zachary, here today, and we have Kevin coming back here next week to take over his regular production responsibilities. We'll try to dress this up with our Hollywood theme and a few other things so we can make this a little more fun as we go. And we can get into janitors and special people in education, not special ed. But we need to talk about a lot of these things and point out who's getting the big bucks, what's happening, these big seminars that they go to, the millions of dollars that they spend. Why do these people need to go anywhere for anything, right? Since when did, by the way, this guy here who is superintendent, does he oversee what? Elementary, middle, and high school? Is that?
K-8, I think. I'll when I do a follow-up, I'll bring all that stuff up.
Yeah. Well, as a young man, he probably thought about maybe becoming a doctor, but now he couldn't afford the pay cut. Yeah. I'll tell you.
And better hours.
Yeah, better hours. Yeah. What the hell? Well, John, it's been a ball, and I want to thank you for jumping in here and doing this, and all of you out there in listener land and school land. If you have a favorite story of an outrageous remark made by a so-called school board member, something outrageous said or done by a teacher, so-called, or principal, or somebody like this who's just grifting to beat hell, well, send us a note. Send it to mike@californiaschoolchoice.org. And don't forget our website, which is californiaschoolchoice.org. John, Juan, it's been a great pleasure having you with us here again, and we appreciate it. I look forward to having you next week. And I'll be in touch with you in the meantime. Please say hello to your lovely wife for me.
Sure will. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, sir. All right, bye. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last 15, 20 minutes, we've had our favorite segment of the week, the Government Grifter of the Week Award. And this week it went to our old buddy, James Q. Hammond, out there, superintendent of the Ontario Montclair so-called school district, who banked a cool $600,000 for last year, medium-sized school district, but he is a competitor. This guy is a winner. He outsprinted everybody. He finished ahead of the head of the LAUSD at $600,000. We are not worthy. In fact, we're going to extend an interview to our friend James Q. Hammond, because as we always say on this segment, we want to know, what the hell do you do for that kind of money? Right? I'm sure he's got a good story. So we look forward to hearing that. Well, this brings us to the end of episode 2 here of our Voice of Choice here in California. You'll be getting it each Sunday morning here. We tape on Thursdays, edit on Fridays. It's in the can and ready to be uploaded on Saturday, and then it's there for Sunday morning as you reach out. So we hope that you will go there and read it and send the link to other people. Link it to your social media, to the groups that you belong to. Let's get the conversation going. And we have people from all over the state. In fact, we have people from all over the country who are linked to our website and are supporting school choice. And don't forget to get out there and get these signatures. Christmas time is a good time to at least get signatures from family members, and ask them to go to our website, californiaschoolchoice.org, and give us some love there. That means $5, $10. Pretend you're Santa Claus for a change, and give the gift of education, give the gift of choice here in California. This is the way forward for our wonderful state as we rebuild and pave a really great future for our country. Remember, in wishing you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, just remember, it's your kids, it's your money, and it's your choice. This is Mike Alexander for the Voice of Choice. Over and out. See you next week.
Voice of Choice podcast ad paid for by Californians for School Choice. Committee major funding from Dale Broome.